Staring into your eyes makes my heart come alive. Suddenly brought to life when I met you. This is your love, this is your love. This is your love, this is your love. Whoa. Oh, oh. Whoa, oh, oh. Whoa. You're pulling me closer and closer, holding my heart till the very end.
Hey, good morning, Restoration community. We are so thrilled that you are joining us online this morning. We're excited to worship with you. We're going to kick off with some songs. We hope that you'll participate with us. And then, of course, we're going to talk about things going on around here. So be sure to follow along in the comments, stay connected with us. We're so excited that you're here with us. We love you guys, and let's get ready to worship.
Well, good morning. Let's stand together as we sing. When darkness tries to roll over my bones, when sorrow comes to steal the joy I own, when brokenness and pain is all I know, oh, I won't be shaken. No, I won't be shaken. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My shame no longer has a place to hide, and I am not a captive to the lies. I'm not afraid to leave my past behind. No, I won't be shaken. No, I won't be shaken. 'Cause my fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My good morning. We're so glad you're here this morning. And we're going to do something that we haven't done in a long time. We haven't gotten to do this in a while, and so it might be real uncomfortable. It might be uncomfortable anyway. But if you would, why don't you turn to somebody around you, give them a handshake, give them a high five, maybe a fist bump, whatever's appropriate these days. I know it's weird. You're you're allowed to do that now. You see my victory. When all I see is the mountain, you see a mountain move. And as I walk through the shadow, your love surrounds me. And there's nothing to fear, for I am safe with you. So when I fight, I'll fight on my knees, with my hands lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you, and every fear I lay at your feet, and I'll sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. If you are for me, who can be against me? For Jesus, there's nothing impossible for you. When all I see is the ashes, will you see the beauty? When all I see is a cross, God, you see the empty tomb. Sing. And when I fight, I'll fight on my knees, my hands lifted high. The battle belongs to you. Almighty fortress, you go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadows, and you win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. An almighty fortress, you go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadows, and you win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. Oh, you go before us, and nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadows, and you win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. So when I fight, I'll fight on my knees, with my hands lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you, and every fear I lay at your feet, and I'll sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. We'll sing. Oh God, the battle belongs to you.
Jesus, Jesus. Breathe, call these bones to live, call these lungs to sing every again. I will praise Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus. You silence fear, Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus. And Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus. You silence fear, Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus. Your name is a light that the shadows can't deny. Your name cannot be overcome. And your name is alive, forever lifted high. Your name cannot be overcome. And Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus. You silence fear, Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus. And your name is a light that the shadows can't deny. Your name cannot be overcome. Your name is alive, forever lifted high. Your name cannot be overcome. Your name is a light that the shadows can't deny. Your name cannot be overcome. And your name is alive, forever lifted high. Your name cannot be overcome. And Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus. Silence fear, Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus. Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus. You silence fear, Jesus, Jesus. You make the darkness tremble, Jesus, Jesus.
Would you pray with me? Jesus, you really do make the darkness tremble. That no matter what is going on in our world, no matter how dark it is, that Jesus is this light, this hope. And so, God, we ask that you would teach us more about that light, teach us more about this hope that we have in you this morning, what it looks like to fully participate in your kingdom, and a kingdom that looks different than the world around us, this upside-down kingdom that we have the privilege of being a part of. So, Lord, teach us to be more like you. Teach us to show your love to the people around us. We ask that you would open our hearts to whatever you want to say to us, that we would be softened to the message that you have for us this morning, that you would speak directly through Kevin this morning, and that we would all grow to love you more in the process. We love you so very much, and we pray this all in your son's name. Amen. Good morning, friends. You can have seats. Hey, so happy to have you here with us this morning. We're so excited to see you, and I am just like jazzed about. Don't mind the whiteboard coming up. Exciting things. I'm super jazzed about everything that happened yesterday. So many of you were at our job fair, and oh, friends, I'm just pumped. I could talk about it for hours. It was such a good day. And, it took, all hands on deck. I was looking around, I'm like, everybody's here. This is the best. And it was such an incredible day to be able to provide this for our community. And just a couple things I want to highlight. I think we have a picture there, Oliver, if you want to bring that up. Now, this is, probably my favorite picture from the day. It's, blurry goodness because you can just see the joy, right? And so if you were at the job fair, you know that if someone was hired on the spot or maybe were given a second interview or took a step forward in that way, there was a bell that they could ring, and they could come up and celebrate that. It was called the Opportunity Bell. And so this young lady, this was her first time applying for a job, and she got to sit with our job coaching workshop team and kind of work on her resume, get that all set up, and then she went and she was hired on the spot. And so it was so exciting to see the joy, and that to me just highlights what was yesterday and the opportunity to partner and serve and love our community together. So I just want to say a huge thank you because so many of you worked really hard to pull that off. And so I'm so grateful for you. I'm so proud of this community. Thank you so much for being a part of that. And as always, keep Second Saturday Serve on your calendar because we will continue to serve every second Saturday of the month together as a community because that is a value of ours. So keep that on your calendar. But now we're going to talk about some fun summer things because last week, unfortunately, I missed the mullet review. I missed the mullet reveal. I heard it was amazing. The best comment that I've heard from most of you is that it was distracting. So hopefully you could pay a bit more attention this week to what we're saying up here. Just kidding. I did catch a little bit online. I was like, yeah, it's a little bit distracting. It was intense. So Kevin's hair is back. We can all celebrate that. But really the whole point of all of that was to raise money for our kids and students programming this summer. And so that kicks off today. We're super excited. Student kickoff is tonight from 6 to 8 p.m. We are having a pool party. Parents, I texted you all the address, but if you need it, get in contact with me. And then every Sunday, 6 to 8 p.m., we are having fun together. If you are a 5th grader going into 6th grade, this is your Welcome to Restoration students. We're super excited about that. Come join us. We are so excited to have you be a part of that with us. And then also our 5th graders, though, you can continue to go through VBS this summer. We're going to let you kind of transition in both. We're excited about that. So also, VBS starts on July 14th, 15th, and 16th. We're so pumped about this. This is going to be such a fun time to be able to engage all of you in our community because we're going to have VBS for our kindergarten through 5th grade friends, but night 1 is going to be VBS and also a parent workshop. So there's something to include all of you in that. Night 2, normal VBS, kids will come up here, and parents will have a night out. Yes, it's exciting. Go do what you want to. And then night 3 is church-wide family fun night. So come hang out. We're going to have a party. It's going to be super fun. So the registration link is in the comments. We would love for you to be a part of that with us. We can't wait. You'll get more information, emails, all of that. But we hope that you'll join us. And as always, we want to stay connected with you. So make sure you fill out that click that little QR code or fill out the Connect card in the back. Let us know how we can be praying for you. If you would like to get more connected in our community, I always love to help you do that. So come connect with me after service or fill those out. We would love to do that. So we're going to continue with our series, but before we do that, why don't you check out the video behind me.
Well, good morning. Good morning. Glad you're here this morning as we continue this series. And a few weeks ago in my neighborhood, we had a garage sale. It was like a community garage sale, and so everybody's supposed to bring out their junk and sit out there, and people were supposed to drive through. And we weren't going to be participating in it that I knew of, but all of a sudden my wife came to me and she was like, "Hey, Kevin, there's a garage sale going on, and you've got too much stuff in the garage, and you need to get rid of it." Now, she apparently has nothing in there. It's literally all mine. And so I had to go start weeding through my garage and start finding the things I was going to get rid of. Some of you, I literally see people looking at each other right now, like eyeing each other, elbowing each other. You know who you are. And so I had to go through my garage and start going through the junk. Now, there was actually quite a bit of junk. And at first I was like, I don't have anything to get rid of. You know, again, you know how this starts, right? You're like, I don't have anything to get rid of. This is all good stuff. This is all necessary. I'm totally going to use everything I have in my garage. Then you start going through it and you're like, yeah, I guess I haven't really pulled this out in a while or used that in a while. This is literally a box that's been packed for the last 3 years since we moved into this house. I guess I could get rid of some things in that. Started to go through some things, and I started to find some things I could get rid of. Now, the big item that I pulled out was a thing that we used here at the church. If you don't know how our storage system is used here at the church, where we store things, we have one closet back here, we have a little trailer down there, and then the majority of things end up just in my garage. Like, my garage is the church storage unit. If you've lost something here before, it's probably in my garage. You can come find it. And one of the things I had in my garage was, if you remember this series we did a few months ago, it was called Better Together, and there was this big yellow tandem bike that was at like every service. Anybody remember this thing? Yeah, it's huge. And guess what? It takes up a lot of my garage. And my wife was like, you're getting rid of that. I was like, but we're going to use it. Who doesn't want a tandem bike? And she was like, you've never used it. You're not going to use it again. Time to get rid of the bike. And I was like, no, it's really great. I think I should keep the bike. And she was like, no, it's definitely time for the bike to go. So I roll the bike out to the driveway. And we had a lot of people driving by. You know the type. They drive by the garage sale. They size you up a little bit. They look at all your stuff, like real judging like. Is there anything in there I want? Because I'm going to offer them 10 cents and go up from there for all of it. Nope, not even anything there worth 10 cents or my time. And then they drive by. Then you have the people that come back a couple times, like they're, maybe. Nope, not going to get out, you know? So we're like watching these people go by. And a lot of people did stop because they saw a big yellow tandem bike, and they were very interested in that. Now, they would ask me questions about it. They'd be like, does it work? And I'd be like, not really. Does it go anywhere? No, I don't think so. Have you ridden it? Yeah, a little bit, but I've also seen more people almost die on that bike than I've seen like excited about it. Some people were like, my wife and I are going to love this. And I was like, oh, no, you won't. No, you won't. You're going to get on that bike and you're going to fight. This thing will be where your marriage ends, is on a tandem bike. And so I was like, but I was trying to, sell it and still get rid of it, but be honest with people. And people were coming through, and a lot of people asked about the bike. But then all of a sudden, this one car pulls up. And this car pulls up, and they're not looking out the window thinking about maybe what they might be interested in. They're not looking out the window looking at my stuff thinking, could I offer them 10 cents for all this? No, this guy pulls up and gets out of the car, and he is so deliberate. And he has on these glasses that are like, they seem to be like ultra magnified glasses. Like they were thick, real thick glasses. And he gets out, he has these glasses on, and he has gloves, like surgical rubber gloves on. And I was like, man, this guy, like, I don't know what he's after, but he looks intense. He was like, I don't know, the glasses were like a Clark Kent before situation of Superman, like real intense. And these gloves, and I was like, oh no, like, man, what's this guy gonna do? And I thought maybe I was being investigated. Maybe this was a sting operation. I didn't know. I was like, the garage door's open. They could just walk right in, I guess, and start looking through my house. And he comes up, and immediately he comes straight to me. He says, sir, do you have any baseball cards? And I was like, well, not out here. He's like, do you have any baseball cards anywhere in your home? I'm like, well, maybe. I think I had some when I was a kid. And he's like, can you get them and bring them out here? I was like, yeah, you bet, buddy. And I was like, I was trying to think. I asked my wife, I was like, Marie, where are my baseball cards? She was like, you have baseball cards? I was like, I did. I know I had a box of them from some point in my life. I don't know. And so I go in my house and I'm like rummaging around. I'm not even sure how this guy talked me into this, honestly. I'm just trying to sell a big yellow bike. And I came out and I was like, I found my box of baseball cards. I brought it out to him. I sat it down and he's like, okay, I will remove the top now. And he starts like walking me through a surgical procedure. He takes the top off of the box. I will now go through this row of cards. Is that okay? I guess so. I don't know what else to do with this. So he starts going through my cards. He's laying them down one by one. He's looking at every corner, every edge. He's looking at the numbers on all of them, the little things that have like little graphics over top of the player. He's looking at the card names, the player names. He's going through all of it. And I was like, I said, if you're interested, we have a yellow bike. He's like, no, sir, I'm not interested at all. Okay. So I said, what are you doing with the cards? He's like, well, listen. He said, I'm not a collector. And he was very deliberate about this. I'm not a collector. Oh, okay. Well, neither am I, as far as I knew until about 10 minutes ago. But apparently I have some baseball cards. And he's like, well, he said, I'm a connoisseur. Oh, I did not know there was such thing as a baseball card connoisseur. And he said, I'm looking at these to see if they have any value. He said, because if I find one card in this lot that has value, I will buy the entire lot. I'll take the whole thing. If I can just find one card that looks like it's worth something, I'll buy the entire lot because it will be worth it. And I started to think, I wonder if I have a card in there that's worth something. Like, that'd be really cool. And like, again, maybe I could send my kids to college on that baseball card and not on the 2x4s I have in my backyard. I was like, man, okay, that'd be really cool. So I'm like looking at him and watching him. He's going through, he's got his gloves on, he's got his glasses on, he's looking at every card. Finally, he gets to the end, he was like, sir, I do not think that you have any worth value here. Oh, my hopes were dashed. He said, but if you find one that you think is worth something, if you find anything in your house, you let me know. And he gave me his phone number. He said, because I will come back here and I will buy the entire lot for that one card. And I was like, wow, okay. Now here's the thing. What we're going to talk about today is a story that is very similar. It's a connoisseur, somebody who knows exactly what they're looking for. It's somebody who knows what they're after. They have a very clear want of what they want to accomplish. They know what they're looking for. They're like this guy with his glasses and gloves, where he knows what he's looking for. They are a connoisseur of this. And this person is going to be one of the most important stories that I think we can understand. Now, I want to tell you real quick, as we're in this series, The Kingdom of Heaven is Like, we've been looking at parables that Jesus is telling, right? And this week, we're going to kind of piggyback off what we talked about last week. Last week, Jesus told one story that was one sentence long. And this week, guys, we get a story that is 2 sentences long. So expect this to be twice as long as last week. So buckle in for the next hour and a half, and here we go, okay? So this one is 2 whole lines that Jesus tells, and it's a very important story about this connoisseur, this person who knows exactly what they're looking for. Now remember, at this time, we're in Matthew 13, Jesus is teaching story after story about the kingdom of heaven. People have had this question. So if you're the Son of God, if you've come from heaven, if you're here from heaven, then what is heaven like? And that's the question we all want to know, right? Like, well, what's heaven like? What do we do to get there? How does this whole thing work? And he doesn't tell them answers in a straightforward manner. In fact, he never tells a straightforward answer. In fact, he only tells stories about what the kingdom of heaven is like. And this is one of those stories. And I mean, it's a great question, is it? Because the kingdom of heaven is just this thing that is so massive and so expansive, I don't think we can fully understand it. But what I love about Jesus is he's not talking about some ethereal heaven that's somewhere way far away from us. He's talking about a heaven that is very close to us, a heaven that is here and now, not there and then. Most of us think heaven works, right, where we die here and we go to that place. And I don't think that's wrong. I don't think that's untrue. But there's also this second part of heaven that Jesus talks a lot more about, which is not a heaven that's there and then. It's a heaven that's here and now. It's happening in our midst. It's happening right in front of us. It's something we can be a part of today. I mean, literally, if you think it's like the words of what's her name? Belinda Carlisle, who's saying, ooh, baby, do you know what that's worth? Ooh, heaven is a place on earth, right? They say in heaven, love comes first. Ooh, heaven is a place on earth. And I guarantee you, we are the only church in Pasco County who will be quoting that song today in their service. You're welcome. You're welcome. But literally, this heaven is a place on earth. He's actually talking about heaven is here because of this love thing, because of these things. And I don't know about you, but this kingdom of heaven seems so necessary. For the people listening at that time, it was absolutely necessary. For us today, I think it's just as necessary. He's talking about this kingdom that is literally a kingdom that is full of peace. Just a place of peace. Can you imagine that? Like, I mean, if you really think about it, can you just imagine a life that you're living where it is just peaceful? Where your internal conflict is gone, where your external conflict is gone, where there is just this peace that you have. Can you imagine? I mean, can you really? I mean, seriously, I think it's almost impossible for us to really imagine a life that is just full of peace. And that's what the kingdom of heaven is like. He also says the kingdom of heaven is this place that's got joy that just doesn't end. This place that love is actually the first and foremost thing that happens. This kingdom is totally different than the world that we're in right now. I think we live in a world that is full of fear. I think we live in a world that is full of anxiety and a world full of stress. I don't know if you've ever felt that before, but for me, it sure feels like our world is full of stress, anxiety, worry, and all kinds of fear. But he's talking about this kingdom that is full of peace. And again, I just think that's something that's so important for us. But he doesn't tell us about it in bullet points. He doesn't tell us about it in simple statements. He tells us about it in story. He wants us to know about this kingdom of heaven in story. And so today, as we look at these stories, what I want to do real quick is I actually want to break down what a story is to help us understand this story, okay? As he talks about story, these are important things. So I'm gonna tell you real quick, I love to study story. Like, this is something I actually enjoy a lot. I teach public speaking, like, to people around the world as well as here locally. And actually, storytelling is one of the most important things you can learn. And so I want to give you just a really quick synopsis of what a story is. What a story is. If you were to break down what is a story at its most simple level. A story is, it's a character, okay? A character who wants something It's okay, we can have some background noise isn't bad. We're good with it. A little soundtrack. And overcomes conflict to get it. Okay, so it's a character who wants something, who overcomes conflict to get it. One of the best books that you can read very simply on this is a book called A Million Miles in a Thousand Years by Donald Miller. He did a great job kind of breaking this down in a story form, but there's so many great books on this. And it's interesting because Jesus, in all of his stories, he has all these elements. These are actually really important elements, and they're going to be important for us to understand today. Because we see a character who wants something. There's always going to be a character, right? And it has to be a likable character. There's a great book if you're ever like writing a story or writing a book or writing a screenplay called Save the Cat by a guy named Blake Snyder, where he breaks down how to write a likable character. You have to have a character that you like, which is kind of interesting. In fact, if you don't have a likable character, nobody cares about your story. It's just a fun fact. But like if you ever pay, like the last Rocky movie, Rocky IV, I think it was when Sylvester Stallone was like, I think he was just under 200 years old, and he made this film, and because he was making this film, he wasn't great at boxing anymore because, osteoporosis or whatever his life is. I mean, he's not a young man. He was doing this film, but he was like trying to make this thing, and actually the whole movie in Rocky IV, they spend 45 minutes of that movie at the beginning of the film not doing any boxing. There is no fighting going on. There's nothing going on like that. In fact, the entire first 45 minutes are him changing light bulbs for people, feeding widows from his store, taking care of a kid who didn't have parents. Why are they doing that? Because if we don't like Rocky, we don't care if he beats the other guy or not. We really don't have anything invested. We have to have a likable character. Character is very important. But what I want to talk about today more is this want piece, especially. Because actually, every story comes down to what a character wants. What is the want? Now, there's a theory that at any moment in any movie or any TV show that's good, you should be able to pause that film and have all the characters on screen. And at that moment, you should be able to tell from their expressions what every single character in that film wants at that moment. What do they want to happen? Because their want should be so established. It has to be a noble want, it has to be a good want, something that you're rooting for as well, like that you're a part of. This is why no bank in the world is like, makes a commercial where they're like, so we want to make more money, right? That's not what they say. They're like, we want to help you accomplish your dreams by taking 3.1% of everything you have. But we want to help you accomplish your dreams. Now, we know what they want, but they won't say that because you won't get on board with that. You're not like, man, I hope that Wells Fargo does better this year off of my money. No, you want to accomplish your dreams. They're going to say a noble want. That's how it works. A noble want is important. This is how it works. For all of us, we have to understand the want, and the want is very important. Again, I'm going to try to limit myself in what I'm saying here. So then this last thing is they overcome conflict to get it. They have to overcome a conflict to get it. Conflict is a natural part of every story. In fact, it's a natural part of your story. It's just the way things work. There's always a conflict in every story. If there is no conflict, there actually is no story. Like the Bible itself. Let's take the Bible itself. If we didn't have conflict in the Bible, it would just be a pamphlet. It would be like Genesis 1 through 3 and like the last 2 chapters of Revelation, and that would be it. It'd be like, that's all we got. It'd be a much quicker read. Most of you would be like, I could read that in 1 year. But it's way faster to get through. The whole rest of it is conflict. Everything else is conflict. There's conflict in Jesus' story constantly. There's conflict in every story that's a good story from start to finish. In fact, without it, there's nothing. Last night, I was watching a movie with my kids. I was watching that new Disney Plus film, Raya and the Lost Dragon, or The Last Dragon, or something like that. We were watching that together. And afterwards, my kids are going to a film camp next week where they're going to learn how to make films and have to write a story and make a story. And so I've been asking them, guys, what is a story? And we go through this as we watch every movie. And last night, we finished the movie, and I was like, guys, so who was the main character? And they were like, Raya. And I was like, well, that was easy. That was in the title. And I was like, but what did they want? And they were like, well, she wanted, and they had a couple thoughts, and then finally it was like, what's the big one? The one was that she wanted her parents back, her dad back, and she wanted kind of this peace for her community. And I was like, what's the conflict? And they were like, pretty much the rest of the movie. And I was like, exactly. Without conflict, there is no film. It's fascinating because we think that we avoid conflict. We think we don't want conflict in our lives. We think that conflict is bad. Let me just say this. Conflict is always inherent. In fact, you want conflict more than you think. And we have a world that plays up the conflict you want. My wife, she watches this show. It's called The British Baking Show. Has anybody seen this? Anybody like this show? Anybody else like this show? Yeah, me neither. I don't understand it. First of all, I don't understand British people. I know they speak the same language, but I don't get it. I need subtitles the entire time. And they are baking things, and afterwards they judge how good they baked the things. And I guess I'm not a picky guy. I'm like, that looks great. I'd eat that in a heartbeat. Everything looks good. I'd be a terrible judge. I'd be like, yep, you bet. There's like, no, that's totally undercooked. It has salmonella. And I'm like, yeah, it's pretty good though. And so she watches this show, and every moment there's no the show really doesn't have that much conflict, but at every single commercial break there's like a sting where this big music comes on and they show a teaser of the next bit, right, where they'll show you the next part of the show, and they'll be like, somebody will be like, your custard is dry, and it's like bum bum bum, and then they go to commercial break. Why do they do that? Your custard is dry or whatever. Bum, bum, bum. Why? Because you crave the conflict. You're going to come back and watch the next segment because you love the conflict. And actually, I think we have a world that plays up our conflict and actually enjoys our conflict, maybe to an extent that's really dangerous, but we actually crave conflict. It's something that's natural. And so my poor kids last night, I'm asking them about conflict in the movie, and they're like trying to explain conflict to me and how it works. And then I realized it must be terrible to be my child. Like this must be no fun at all to have to be my kid. Like they're like, can we just watch a movie? I'm like, no, we need to break it down. Who's the character? Let's go through all the stuff. What's the conflict? You're not going to bed until I hear about the conflict. I'm a great dad. Anyways, that's what I want to look at today as we look at this story, because the character and the want and the conflict, it may seem like this is a very short story that wraps itself up very quickly, but I think there's actually a lot that we can learn if we learn through this lens. So we're in Matthew chapter 13, and you're welcome to turn there. We're going to stay there most of the morning here. There's one spot I want to kind of dive out of this for just a quick second, but it says this, Matthew chapter 13, starting in verse 45. Again, we get two verses. It starts with the word again. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant. Now, so I'm just going to say the again is there because we're kind of piggybacking off of last week. I would encourage you, if you were not here for last week, go back and find it because it really does kind of make sense the way the two go together. However, and I really thought about skipping over this story, but then I also thought, because it's really similar to last week, like they're very similar stories, but then I also thought last week I had a mullet and you guys didn't hear a word I said. So this week I'm just going to do it again because I know nobody was paying attention. Again, some of you straight on, you were fine, but as soon as I turned sideways, I saw some of your eyes. I saw the looks I got, and it wasn't good, I'll say that. So again, this week we're going to do it again because, again, I know last week was just a lost cause. Again, the kingdom. And guys, I'm just going to say this. If you have a pastor that has a mullet, don't listen to him. That's actually wise. That's a smart move on your part. So don't listen to him. That's fine. That's a good idea. That's just called discernment. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant looking for fine pearls. So again, this is what the kingdom of heaven is like. It's like a merchant looking for fine pearls. Do you see this? It's like a merchant looking for fine pearls. What we see here is we see our character and we see their want very clearly, right? It's like this connoisseur, this guy who rolls up. He's a merchant. He's got his rubber gloves. He's got his glasses. This is a guy looking for fine pearls. He has a very specific mission. Now, in this day and age, at this time, pearls were the most important and most like prevalent thing that you could think of. Today, we would think of diamonds probably being the most valuable stone or thing you could find. Pearls in the ancient kingdoms, they were known to kind of be the diamonds. They were much more impressive, worth much more. In fact, we have records that Cleopatra, she was given by one of her suitors, she was given a gift, and it was a pearl that in her day was worth 25 million denarii, which in our day would be $250 million for one pearl. So just think of, that's one pearl, $250 million in our day. That's what she was given as a gift by somebody, which, is really cool. Like my wife and I, we just celebrated 16 years of marriage. And so I found out that that's the wax anniversary. Didn't know that was a thing, did you? And so we went over to Tampa of like oils, and then they make the candle, and they make wax out of it, around it, and then they like give it to you, and you take it home, and then you find out if it smelled good or not. And turns out we weren't very good at it, and our house does not smell great now, and it's our own fault. It smells of our love. Ironically. It's a weird thing to do that. And so while Cleopatra had suitors who brought her $250 million pearls, I got my wife a candle, and I think it's the same. Being my wife must be terrible too. I'm sorry. Anyways, so somebody brought her this pearl, and actually today you might be like, it's really weird for somebody to like be looking for or out there just investigating, see if they can find pearls just out there or finding diamonds out there. Apparently that's not that uncommon, by the way. This week I literally read this news story. There's a guy named Christian Leiden who had a dream of creating his wife's wedding ring himself. And so he would go around state to state and try to find things on the ground that were worth something so he could make a ring. He actually was in Arkansas, of all places, and found this yellow diamond that is a 2.2 carat. It's huge. It's a massive yellow diamond that he found out there and decided he was going to do something romantic for his wife and make her a ring out of that. Some of these ladies' faces are like, whoa. Some of you are very interested in Christian all of a sudden, aren't you? Yeah, Yeah, what's that guy doing? Yeah, well, just give him a second. He's not married yet, but in 16 years, he'll have to figure out how to make wax really romantic. So good luck, buddy. So there are still people doing this. He went out and found this thing. This is something he wanted to find. This person, what his want is, Christian Leiden's world and what he wanted is very clear. He wanted to find this thing, and this merchant has a very clear want. In the same way, he is out there looking for fine pearls. He wants nothing less than that. And here's what I think happens to some of us is while we see in this story something very simple, where it's this guy who goes out into a field, he's looking for pearls. His want is so clear, and his want is singular and focused. For many of us, I would say that ours is not. Especially when it comes to the kingdom of heaven. Many of us, we say or we think that we want to pursue that kingdom of heaven with everything we have, with everything we are. We say we want to follow Jesus, and we're all in on that. We say that we want to be this connoisseur, but I'm not really sure that's true. I think for many of us, we want to do that as long as it fits into everything else we're doing, right? Like when it's convenient for us, then we'll do it. I'll follow Jesus when it kind of works into the schedule, when it works into the routine, when it works into the people I'm around, when it works into the things I'm already doing, then I want to follow Jesus. My want is very clear when I think it could be, but it's not clear all the time. This person has a singular focus. See, for many of us, I think we get distracted. We've talked about this before, but I think that one of the greatest enemies that we have to our spiritual life is distraction. John Ortberg writes a really great article on this where he says that there's an idea that we think that we're supposed to go after, that really the biggest concern we have is that the devil is going to make us like against Jesus. And he's like, I don't think that's the case. The devil is not trying to make you against Jesus. What he's trying to do is make you distracted by other things. He's just trying to make you a watered down version of somebody following Jesus. That's what he's trying to do, right? Because Jesus actually would rather have you be against him than he would have you be a lukewarm version of somebody following him, pursuing the kingdom of heaven. I have friends that honestly I respect them more when I see friends of mine who are atheists or agnostic or whatever. There's a part of me that almost respects that more than the people that I know who are like, yeah, like I do the church thing sometimes, and like I'm pretty cool with Jesus for the most part. I don't think so. I don't think that's how this works. This is a merchant who is looking for pearls. He has a singular want. There is nothing else in his life that he is pursuing besides this one thing. It is the first and foremost thing. For some of you who are in the identity class we're piloting right now on Wednesday nights, I apologize for what's about to happen, but I want to kind of give you a couple thoughts of things that what we see in identity and really what we see right now psychologically that people would say are the four biggest things that are detractors that are taking away our focus. And so the first one, and I'm not going to fill this whole board. It was the only one we could find up here. So try to take it easy, or I'll just write really big, really, really big. The first thing we see is that people are distracted, and the thing that we want our identity to be in is in performance. This isn't how you spell performance. Performance. We want performance. We want to perform. For many of us, that's the first thing that we put our attention into, is how do other people see me? The question you would ask myself is like, I am what I do, right? And for many of us, that's the first thing that we worry about is my performance. And we want other people to like that and feel good about that. Performance is a big one. Again, we've talked about this before, but in certain readings, like if you read the Burnout Society, things like that, we've started to run into this in our culture where performance becomes the first thing. And what happens is when you take that away, people don't know what to do with themselves anymore. When I take your job away, if I were to take away the things that you do that you feel good about, those activities that you're like, this is where my identity lies, you'd be like, I don't know who I am anymore, and I don't know what I do anymore. Performance is a big one. Performance becomes a god in some ways. The second one is really possession, and this comes out of some psychological stuff, but we'll talk about today. Possessions. Possessions I see being one of the biggest detractors we have. One of the biggest substitutes for what we really are, and one of the biggest things that takes our attention away from our singular focus. Possessions do this to us. Again, up until really about 150 years ago, we never had this problem. So up until about 150 years ago, until the Industrial Revolution, we were living in a world where supply and demand were actually the opposite of what they are today. We were living in a world where supply was much higher than demand. Demand was much higher than supply. We're living in a world where people were not able to create enough for everybody to be happy all the time. And so there was a much higher demand, and people were creating at the speed they could to meet that. And about 150 years ago, when we hit the Industrial Revolution, everything flipped for the first time in human history. And suddenly we had more supply than we had demand. And what happens then? Companies, factories, people, they have to figure out a way to sell you stuff because they got to get rid of all that supply. And that's when we started the things where it's like, we're going to put out a new vehicle every year, or we're going to put out a new phone all the time, or whatever the things are we look at now. You need different clothes for different seasons. And trust me, I know, guys, nobody wants to wear white after Labor Day. We're not barbarians. I get it. But like, this is where this came from. It's materialism and it's consumerism, and that's where it was built. It was the first time where we had more supply than we had demand, and we are still living in a world where that consumerism drives us, and we literally identify with the possessions we have. It's become part of our identity. It's become one of the biggest distractions I see. It's a huge problem that we're dealing with, I think. One of the other ones that we have is pleasure. It's nice that these all start with P, so you're welcome. Pleasure. Pleasure, this is one that we don't have to get deep into today, but pleasure is one where you might think that's like a simple term, or it's like, well, I really like pizza or whatever. No, usually pleasure has to do with like your sexual identity and the things that you want in that way, right? When you want something, that's the way we view pleasure, and it becomes a thing that is overriding everything else. Again, when do you think was the last time in history that the first thing you knew about somebody was their sexual identity, where they were a he, him, or a she, her, or a they, them? It's the first thing you know about people today. There's a reason for that, because that has become such an important part of identity and one of the biggest distractions to everything else that we're supposed to be. And the last thing is popularity. You are what others think about you. So it would be, you are what you do, you are what you have, you are what you like, and you are what others think about you. suddenly your popularity, right? And we see this all the time. And it's worse in social media world, I think. It used to be just you were popular at school and like you went home. Now it's like, well, those posts didn't get enough likes, or this thing didn't have enough follows, or whatever. And now we have to be able to have popularity always on our minds. And we're living in a world where I think it's one of the biggest distractions we have. These things are distractions. We could go down the list. We could make more. If I were to add a fifth P to what psychologists are saying right now, I would add politics, I think, right now is one of our biggest distractions. These are distractions, and what we allow them to do is they take us off course, and no longer do we know what we want. We've gotten distracted by the want. This is a merchant who's looking for fine pearls. See, Jesus contrasts this. He actually contrasts this statement with another statement. In another spot, when he's teaching about the kingdom of heaven, he has another thing about pearls. So if you have your Bible open, just flip back probably just 2 or 3 pages and go to Matthew chapter 7. In Matthew chapter 7, so just a couple pages back, what you're going to see is this is not in a story form about the kingdom of heaven. This is about a sermon on the kingdom of heaven. This is Jesus teaching in the Sermon on the Mount. And when he's finishing the Sermon on the Mount, this whole thing about this peace that we're supposed to have and this joy we're supposed to live with and this just this love of forgiving, loving our enemies and forgiving people and all the things he's teaching on, this kingdom of heaven looks totally different. He's not teaching in story, but he's teaching in a sermon. And he ends this sermon with this real weird line. And in chapter 7, verse 6, he says, "Do not give dogs what is sacred. Do not throw your pearls to pigs. If you do, they may trample them under their feet, and then turn and tear you to pieces," which is a real weird thing. If your death was death by feeding pearls to a pig and it killed you, it'd be a real weird story for your grandkids to have to tell, right? But he's saying there's something going on here. Now, I don't know about you. I've struggled with a lot of commands of Jesus. There's a lot of commandments of Jesus that I've struggled with. This one right here, of taking pearls and throwing pearls at pigs, this is not one of the commandments I've ever struggled with of Jesus. I've never had this problem where I've been like, man, I got to stop doing this. It's a real problem I have is every time I see pigs anywhere in the world, I just have to go throw pearls at them. Take that, pig. This is not an issue I've ever had in my life. I don't know if you have. Maybe you struggle with different things than I do. What is Jesus talking about here? Don't throw pearls to pigs. What he's saying here is that there is this kingdom of heaven. There's this whole thing that's been put together, and it's this beautiful thing. But sometimes some things don't want it. They don't want the same thing. He's saying there is this pearl, and this pearl is the kingdom of heaven. This pearl is something that's so perfect, and it's so valuable, but some things just don't understand. A pig does not understand the value of a pearl, does it? A pig doesn't get how great a pearl is. It has no value to a pig. And what he's saying is sometimes there are people who won't understand this. Now, let me just say this in kind of understanding that verse, because I think this translates to our understanding and our wants, is that for some of us, we get frustrated about this. Some of you may have family members, you may have friends, who you're like, man, I've told them about about Jesus. I've talked to them about the kingdom of heaven. You might have relatives. You might have kids. Again, whatever it is. And you're like, and they just don't care about Jesus. They're just not interested. I have a family member of my own who I'm like, he knows all the things. He knows what the pearl is. We've tried it until we're blue in the face. Follow Jesus, and I promise you your life is going to look better, and this kingdom of heaven is so valuable. And we have family members who just are like, we honestly just could not care less. Just not interested. Do you guys have anybody like this? It gets real frustrating, doesn't it? Now, what's even more frustrating, let me tell you from a pastor standpoint, it's even more frustrating when this happens sometimes, is when you feel like you've preached about this kingdom of heaven like every single week, for instance, like of your whole life, and you have people who come to that church and like they're part of it, and then maybe they leave your church or they go to like a convention or an event or something, and they come back to you later and they're like, oh my goodness, you should have heard what they were talking about with this Jesus and this kingdom of heaven thing, because it was awesome. It was so good, and I get it now. I totally get it because they explained it better. You're like, no, they didn't. No.
No, they did. I promise I did good. I brought a whole whiteboard up and everything. I threw pearls at a pig, for crying out loud. I did like 100%. I was really good. And they're like, no, I totally get it now. Totally get it. Now, here's the thing. The onus of this is not on the pearl. It's not on the presenter even. It's on the receiver, right? It's on the one who takes it in. It's on either the pig or the merchant. A pig is not thinking about this at this moment as any kind of person who's looking for a want. They don't have a want like that. Their want is to feed their stomach. Their want is just to take in whatever is thrown at them. Their want is very, very simple and very, very shallow, if we're being honest. But this merchant, he's not a consumer like a pig. He's a connoisseur, right? He knows exactly what he wants. He's going after it. I've had people do the same thing. They come to our church, and I've literally had them say it. They come and they sit here, and they're like, I've never heard the gospel presented like this before. This is so great. It's totally different than anything I've ever heard before. And I'm like, I don't think it is. I actually don't think so. I want for my ego to feel like that's true and be like, yeah, absolutely, I present it way better. I threw pearls at pigs because I'm a genius. That's what really smart people do. I want that to be true, but that's not the truth. It's not about even me, right? It's about whether this person is at that place where they are a this contributor or this connoisseur of things, or if they're still at the moment where they're just a consumer of whatever is thrown at them. It's really on their heart. And here's why I say this. Here's what this whole thing's about. Is that I think Jesus is saying the same thing to you and I. This isn't about, I don't want to talk about them. I want us to talk about us. For you and I, where is our want? Are we hearing about this pearl that's out there, this pearl that is worth so much? And are we sitting here as consumers, whether it's in a church building week after week or the podcasts you listen to or the things that we do, are we sitting there going, yeah, that's pretty cool. I'll just take it in and just like eat it with everything else that I have. I'll just take it in with everything else going on. I'll make it just part of the things. And as long as it works within my schedule and works within the things that I'm already doing, I'll just take it in like that. Or are we actually the merchant who's a connoisseur of these things? Are we going in with rubber gloves and glasses and being like, no, I'm looking for something specific and I don't want anything else to get in my way? I would say for most of us in our American Christianity and most of us in the church and most of us that have been around this for a long time, myself included, most of us are consuming this more like a pig that's listening to its stomach than like this merchant who's listening to his heart. Because notice what happens right after this. Notice what happens in this story. The next verse, so it says this in Matthew 13, if you go back to Matthew 13, it's going to say the same. Let's read the first part again, the first sentence. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant looking for fine pearls. And when he found one of great value, what did he do? He went away and sold everything he had and bought it. Now, this is a really great ending. And we talked about this last week, that sometimes we have to sell, literally, we have to get rid of everything else that's hindering us and go all in on this. And I believe that with all my heart. But you might look at this story and you might go, but where's the conflict? Like, Jesus, build up the conflict. We love the conflict. Give us the British baking show version where we find out our custard's going to be too dry. We need the conflict. Jesus, build that up. Make it suspenseful. Because look at how quickly it resolves. It just says he found it and he went away and sold everything he had and bought it. Why doesn't Jesus play up the conflict? Because I think Jesus knows that the conflict is already inherent within every single one of us. The conflict's already there. Because we want so badly to let ourselves fall into being distracted by performance and possessions, by our pleasures, by our popularity. We want so badly to let those things take over. We want so badly to live a life where the kingdom of heaven just fits into the pockets that we let it fit into, and instead of letting it take over our entire lives. We want so badly to be this consumer of just whatever is thrown at us instead of being the connoisseur who would give everything away to go after that one thing. And for many of us, we're still living that. That's why Jesus doesn't have to play up the conflict, because you and I know the conflict is already there. It's not just an external conflict, it's an internal conflict that we're dealing with constantly. I remember be almost 18 months ago, I don't know, there was this whole thing that kind of stopped us from gathering as much. I don't know if you remember that, but it happened. But before that, we were here in this room. And I remember there was a gal here who she was coming to the church, and she's since moved away, but she was coming to the church, and she had never been in church before. And here's the great news about that is when you haven't been to church before, then I do get to be like the best speaker you've ever heard or whatever and present the kingdom the best because you have nobody else to compare it to. I just hope they don't go somewhere else afterwards because they'll find out there's better. But, I was like, it felt pretty good. And she was here, and she had never been to church because she'd literally been told growing up that she had done so many things wrong, and she was living certain lifestyles wrong to the point where she would never be allowed in the church. Never be allowed in the church. She was told this. She came to our church, and she started to feel somewhat comfortable, even right off the bat, which was shocking to her because she was told that she would never be accepted in a church. And so she started coming, and one morning, I remember her coming in here, and she had tears in her eyes, and she just seemed kind of like a mess that morning in ways. We went through worship, we were singing, and she's here, and she's kind of taking it all in, and you could see just the emotion starting to kind of take over in her. And I started teaching, and I don't know what I was teaching on that Sunday. I don't know what was happening. You could just see just a ton of emotion. And eventually she had to leave. She just walked out of the room, and I thought, great, I made her mad or something, and I don't know what's going on in her life and what's happening. After service, she came back in here, and it was just a few of us sitting around, and she came up to me and she said, hey, here's the thing, Kevin, and she called me Pastor Kevin because that's apparently more professional. And I was like, don't worry, I'm more of a lumberjack than a pastor. So, but, she said, Pastor Kevin, I need to talk to you about something. She said, I want to follow Jesus. She said, I don't know what that means, and I don't even know what it all looks like, but I want to follow Jesus. I said, that's awesome. That's great. And the next line is what got me. She said, I realize that I'm going to have to change a lot of things about my life to follow him. Now here's the thing, and you might think that sounds so legalistic and how terrible that is. And I'm not saying that I wanted her to feel that way. I was very glad because I do believe you come to Jesus as you are. I'm fully on board with that. What happened when she said those words, though, is I might have to change my life to follow him, is there was a conviction deep within, not her, but within me, where I thought, when was the last time I felt that way? When was the last time I thought, I'm going to have to change a lot of things in my life to follow Jesus? It's going to require things to look different because I can't be distracted by everything else. I have to have a singular focus because this kingdom of heaven is so valuable. And if I would just pursue it with all of my life, I guarantee you that I would have less conflict. I would have this peace because it would be a singular focus as I pursued that with everything that I have. And as proud of her as I was, and we prayed together afterwards, I walked away feeling a strong conviction, not just for her and how I needed to care for her, but for myself. And I went home and journaled, what are the things that I'm not giving up, that I'm still holding on to these distractions, that I'm not sure I want to let go of yet? For you and I, there might be things right now that there are still just these pieces that we're holding on to. We don't have a singular one. And so because of that, we have this inherent conflict in our lives all the time. And we'll never have this kingdom of peace until we've let go of the other things and said, no, I'm all in on this one thing, and everything else can fall into place afterwards. So today as we close, I'd encourage you to take a couple of seconds just to think that through. What are the things in your life? What are the things in my life? What are the things that we need to kind of take an inventory of and say, these are distractions that are keeping us, maybe me personally, maybe me as the leader of my family or as a parent in my family, maybe me as a person who works in a workplace with people who don't know Jesus, maybe me as a witness to a world who needs it so badly, maybe me as a person who brings the kingdom of heaven right here to earth. What is it in me that needs to be removed and taken away so that I can have a singular focus on the kingdom of heaven above all else? So would you stand with me as we pray? I'm going to encourage you real quickly, if you would, just to open your hands, and this is something I like to do when I pray, is when I ask God for something like this, when I ask him about something that I want him to change in me, the first thing I do is I open my hands. Now, this is just a psychological thing, just so you know. You are actually less likely to lie when your hands are open and up. That's just a truth. Makes you less likely to lie. And sometimes I want God to be honest with me, and I want to be honest with him, and this is the way I have to do that. And so if you would you just take a second and just bow your head, and you can close your eyes. Would you just take a second and take inventory? And would you ask God to speak to you right now? And would you ask him, what are the things that are distracting me? Would you ask him that right now? What are the things that are distracting me? Ask him to speak to you. What are the things that are distracting me? Would you ask him, what are the conflicts that are coming up in my life? What are the conflicts that keep happening? What's the biggest conflict I'm dealing with? And then would you ask him to reveal to you, just really quickly, what is it that I want? Above all else, what is it that I want? And if the answer to that is not the kingdom of heaven, then how do I get that to be the first thing that I want? If the answer is not the kingdom of heaven right now, if I say, what is it that I want more than anything? How do I make it the kingdom of heaven? What do I need to remove to have a singular focus? Jesus, I thank you for this story. And I thank you for this kingdom of heaven that is so valuable. And we're so sorry for the times we've just not understood it or swept it under the rug or just moved it to the side, where we've acted more like a pig than a merchant. We've acted more like just a consumer than a connoisseur. Today, would you speak to us? Would you speak through us as to how we can pursue your kingdom above all things? Praise things in your name. Amen. Let's sing together.
Here is where I lay it down, every burden, every crown. This is my surrender. This is my surrender. Here is where I lay it down, every lie and every doubt. This is my surrender. I will make room for you to do whatever you want to, do whatever you want to. And I will make room for you to do whatever you want to, do whatever you want to. Here is where I lay it down, every burden, every crown. This is my surrender. This is my surrender. And here is where I lay it down, every lie and every doubt. This is my surrender. I will make room for you to do whatever you want to, do whatever you want to. And I will make room for you to do whatever you want to, do whatever you want to. Yes, I will make room for you to do whatever you want to, do whatever you want to. I will make room for you to do whatever you want to, do whatever you want. Shake up the ground of all my tradition. Break down the walls of all my religion. Your way is better. Yes, your way is better. Shake up the ground of all my tradition. Break down the walls of all my religion. Your way is better. Yes, your way is better. Shake up the ground of all my tradition. Break down the walls of all my religion. Your way is better. Yes, your way is better. Shake up the ground of all my tradition. Break down the walls of all my religion. Your way is better. Yes, your way is better. And I will make room for you to do whatever you want to. Do whatever you want to. And I will make room for you to do whatever you want to. Do whatever you want to. And here is where I lay it down. You are all I'm chasing now. This is my surrender. Yes, this is my surrender. Here is where I lay it down. You are all I'm chasing now. This is my surrender.
I hope as we go into our week, we can continue to ask God to reveal to us these distractions that we have and what it looks like to put this kingdom of heaven first. And one of the things that I love about being a part of community is that we can help each other do that, right? That's one of the most valuable things in community is that we can point each other to that, help each other put that as our top priority. And so if you would like to take a step into that, if you would like to be further connected into community, we'd love to talk to you about that. So we have some great steps for you in that. We hope that you have a great week. Restoration students, we're so excited to see you tonight. We're kicking off the party at 6 o'clock. We will see you there, and we'll see everyone else next Sunday. Have a great week.